Hey guys, it's Miss Ross. Today we're going to be talking about decimals and fractions and how they relate to money, okay? All right, so we're going to be making an anchor chart together. Go ahead and get out a fresh sheet of paper and label it decimals and fractions as money. As we're going through today, if you need to stop the video and listen to something again, that is totally fine, okay? So I am going to divide my paper in half right here, and then I'm going to divide this section up top into quarters, okay? So, and then I'm going to write something in each of these four sections. So you got the bottom half with not a lot of stuff on it, and then you got the top half ready to write your sections down. Okay, so the first thing that I want you to know is that money can be divided into coins. Write that down. Money can be divided into coins, all right? Coins. I'm going to spell coins right with an S, period. Okay. Money can be divided into coins. So what that means is if you have $1, I want to know how many dimes that is. It is 10 dimes. Okay. If I have $1 again, and I want to know how many pennies that is, it's 100 pennies, okay? You guys know this. You learned all this in kindergarten and first grade, okay? So money can be divided up into coins. So if you have $1, that's 10 dimes. If you have $1, that's 100 pennies, okay? And so what that means is that I'm going to take out my marker here, and then you can write that coins can be written as fractions. So write that down. Coins can be written as fractions. So we're wearing our new block here. Okay, so if you have $1, how much is that out of 100? That is 10 out of 100 cents in the whole dollar, okay? Because there are, 1 dime is worth 10. There are 10 dimes inside of there. So that's 10 out of 100. If you have 1 dime, that's 10 out of 100 cents. If you have 1 penny, you guessed it, that is 1 cent out of 100 cents. Because it would take 100 cents to make the whole dollar, and 1 penny is just worth 1, okay? So coins can be written as fractions. That's very important that you understand that. Okay, next point that I want to reiterate. So if you can write this, if you can say that a dime is 10 cents out of 100 and a penny is 1 cent out of 100, you can also just say them out loud. I want you to say them out loud to yourself. 1 dime is 10 100th. 1 penny is 1 100th. So we can write these and understand this. You can write that decimals and fractions sound the same. Decimals and fractions sound the same. Miss Rose, what does that mean? That means if you say 1 or 10 hundredths, that is equal to, sorry, I'm saying this wrong. 10 hundredths is equal to, if you put a 10 in the hundredths place, 10 hundredths is equal to 10 hundredths. If you have 1 hundredths, you're going to put a 1 in the hundredths place. Decimals and fractions sound the same. All right? Now, you can write this down. Next one, you can also say that coins can be written. Am I saying this right? Let me say coins can be written as fractions. We have that here. So we can also say that coins can be written as decimals. Coins can be written as decimals. So what that means is if you have 1 dime, that is equal to 10 hundredths, which is also, since you have a 1 in the tenths place, is 1/10. You can also say 1 penny is equal to 1 in the hundredths place, because 1 penny is equal to 1 in the hundredths place. Okay, so this is 1 dime is 1/10 because it's got a 1 in the tenths place, and 1 penny is equal to 1/100th because there is a 1 in the hundredths place. Okay, all right. So when you are comparing decimals, I want you to think of comparing dimes and pennies. Okay, so let's write that down. When you are comparing decimals, think of comparing dimes and pennies. When comparing think of dimes and pennies. So what that means, if you've got 1 dime, that is going to be greater than 1 penny. So what that means, 1 dime written as a fraction is 1/10, because it would take 10 dimes to make a whole dollar. And that is going to be greater than 1/100, because that's what 1 penny is. 1 penny is 1/100 pennies in a dollar. So what that means is 1/10, if you're writing the words, is greater than 1/100th, if you're saying it out loud. 1/10 is greater than 1/100th. See, a lot of kids see 100th and they go, oh, 100, but not the case. Because if you think about dimes, it's tenths. So that's 1/10, and a dime is bigger than a penny. All right, and the last one, so if you have 1/10 like that, it is greater than 1 in the hundredths place. So when you're comparing decimals, think of dimes and pennies. Okay, so let's write this down. So I'm going to write down this down here. I want you to write 7/10 is more than 3/100ths. And I'm going to show you how you can make this work for yourself. So I told you, when comparing, think of dimes and pennies, okay? So 7/10, when you're thinking of tenths, I want you to think of dimes. So I want you to cross this out, and instead of saying tenths, say 7 dimes is more than 3/100ths. Mark this out, and instead of hundredths, hundredths are pennies, right? Pennies. Okay, so let's do another one. Write 5/10 tenths equals 50 hundredths. Miss Ross, that doesn't make any sense. Well, turn it into dimes and pennies. So mark out tenths, and instead of tenths, think of dimes. 5 dimes is equal to how many hundredths? Mark out hundredths and turn it into pennies. So does that make sense? Does 5 dimes equal 50 pennies? It sure does. Let's do one more. Write down 85 hundredths is more than 7 tenths. Okay, so I'm saying this out loud, but I'm going to think of it in terms of dimes and pennies. So 85 hundredths is not 85 hundredths, it's 85 pennies. 85 pennies is more than 7 tenths. You're going to cross out tenths and turn it into dimes. So if you were comparing 7 dimes, that's 70 cents, to 85 hundredths, which is pennies, so 85 cents. So this would be 85 cents. This is 70 cents. So 85 hundredths is bigger, even though it says hundredths, okay? This one is bigger. All right, so that is how you can use what you know about decimals and fractions as money to use them to figure out what they look like in your head. Okay, so I'm going to show you one last thing. I'm going to share my screen with you, and I'm going to come up here. I'm going to move this out, and I'm going to look at this place value chart that I pulled up. Okay, I'm going to move that out of the way. So I want you to look at it, and you'll see that I have a whole dollar here in the ones place. I have a $10 bill in the tens place and a $100 bill in the hundreds place. Well, that makes sense. Ones, tens, hundreds. Okay, Miss Ross, I got you. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. If you've got one whole, if you want to look at a dime and you want to know how many parts of a dollar it is, a dime is 1/10 of a dollar because it would take 10 of them to make a dollar. Moving on, if you had pennies, it would take 100 pennies to make a whole dollar. So each penny is worth 1/100th of a dollar. Okay, so when you're thinking about decimals, I want you to think about tenths as dimes and hundredths as pennies. All right, I love you. I will talk to you later. Make sure you have all of this anchor chart in your notes. Bye, babies.